Fair use. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107.
O Yahweh, Kuma, Yahweh, Wayapusto O Yazeasa, Wayanusa Misanecha Bitunecha. Arise of you, O Yahweh. Let your enemies be scattered, and let those that hate thee flee from before thee. Give him thanks by saying Hallelujah.
When we look at the Torah of Yahuwah, we see, like the northern and southern kingdom of Israel, two witnesses repeated over and over again in the temple pillars, the doors, the cherubim, the two stacks of bread, the two tablets, and the Torah Tanakh and Brit Hadashah. We witness this twinning over and over again, saying, return and return again, revealing the law of heaven and earth, twinned, masculine and feminine. This is why Yahweh said, on these two hang all the Torah of Yahuwah, like splendid fruit trees of knowledge and of life, and like the sun and the moon, we witness the law to love Yahuwah with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. The precious pearl, the jewel that we find at the epicenter of the Sefer of Yahuwah, is a central poetic statement, affirming the power of the Word, who is Yahwsha himself. It both bridges and witnesses to the faithful law keepers by the Ruach before Messiah's appearing. Yet it also confirms the power of the Word, Yahwsha, to convert our souls, ultimately, with his sacrifice and resurrection. It is contained in Psalm 19, which says, the law of Yahuwah is perfect, converting the soul. The statutes of Yahuwah are righteous and true, making wise the simple. This law would be the foundation of Yasharel obtaining the kingdom 2 times, ultimately, but also losing it many times. And the blood of the prophets slain by Yasharel would witness to the power of the Torah and the prophets that Yasharel would not hear. And so Yahweh said, and I will send witnesses to them, that I may witness against them. But Yasharel will not hear, and will slay the witnesses also. And they will persecute those who seek the Torah, says Jubilees 1:13. And they will abrogate and change everything to work evil before my eyes, says Yahweh. Indeed, the Jewish moon and Enochian 4th day calendar today exemplify this perversion through the Amhoretz. Yasharal did far greater perversions with Molech. However, in this awakening, Yasharal is still lawless. Jubilees 1:15 says, and they will forget my Torah and my commandments and all my judgments, and will go astray as to the monthly renewals, Kodashim, on Shavuot, and feasts and jubilees and ordinances of obedience to the law. Of obedience to the law indeed, says Yahwah of Yasharel in Jubilees 1:23. And they will not be obedient till they confess their own sin and the sin of their fathers. After this they will turn to me in all uprightness with all their heart and all their soul, and I will circumcise the foreskin of their heart and the foreskin of the heart of their seed. And I will create in them a Ruach HaKodesh, and I will cleanse them, so they shall not turn away from me from that day to eternity. And their souls will cleave to me and to all my commandments, and they will fulfill my commandments, and I will be their father, and they will be my children. And they all shall be called children of the living Elohim, and they will know that I love them. The Psalm 19 law is the jewel set in the midst of the two testaments, and it reveals the lawgiver reflecting Yahwah and Yahwsha in heaven and the earth, to point us to the homeland and Jerusalem, and indeed Eden, with the witness of the very olive and fig trees in the earth, the very homeland today, reflecting the corrupt workings of Yasharel. Even now in captivity, most of Yasharel denies the law of the sun, strangling life and obscuring the light of the law of the sun and the very revelation of Eden in lawlessness. Yet Psalm 19 proves the appointed times, repentance, redemption by Yahwsha is reflected in his greatest light. Indeed, that light, like Jerusalem and Eden, is the apple of Yahweh's eye on earth and in heaven. It is the light shining in the midst of the two witnessing cherubim, the reflected light of Yahwsha, just as its light links heaven and earth. This law of the Son unites Torah to our Redeemer. Psalm 19. The heavens enumerate the glory of El, and the expanse shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night shows knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heavens, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. You notice in this first portion of the psalm, the heavens give glory to Yah. They speak in all languages, including that language of creation, which is Hebrew. They speak the Torah and the law to the ends of the world. And in them he has placed the tabernacle, the house of the sun. And the sun is compared to the bridegroom, who is Yahwsha, and who once was Yahuwah coming out of his chamber, rejoicing as a strong man to run his race from one end of the heavens to the next. and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. This depicts the power of the glory of Yahuwah and his command and his word calling forth creation and life over the earth. And when it speaks of a line, it is speaking of the very same measuring line that is mentioned in Amos 7, where it says, Yahuwah stood upon a wall made by a plumb line, with a plumb line in his hand. And Yahuwah said unto me, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, a plumb line. Then said Yahuwah, behold, I will see a plumb line in the midst of Yasharel, and I will not pass by them any more. This is the light that is the unchanging measure of purity and excellence, manifest both in Yahuwah and Yahwsha. For Yahuwah is the Father of lights, and Yahwsha himself was the first light, the light of the world, in Genesis chapter 1. The sun is reflecting the image of Yahweh and Yahwsha as a type. And this is also the law of the male, the law of the sun, the law of the masculine Adam. The very image and face of Yahuwah is hidden because it would destroy everything. And so many things are hidden from the heat thereof of his face. But the sun manifests the light that is the face of Yahwsha on a degree that we can handle here on earth. And so the last line here ends with, there is nothing hid from the heat thereof, just as there is nothing hidden from Yahuwah. And this is where the sun now points to the Torah. In verse 7 of Psalm 19, it says, after this, nothing is hidden from the heat thereof. The Torah of Yahuwah is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of Yahuwah is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of Yahuwah are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahuwah is pure, enlightening the eyes. Immediately here again, we see a comparison between the light that the sun casts and the light of the eyes and the light of the world. It goes on to say, the fear of Yahuwah is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of Yahweh are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned, and in the guarding of them there is great reward. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse me from the secret faults. Keep back your servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then shall I be upright. Upright, the word for that in Hebrew, is Yasharun. And I shall be innocent from the great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Yahweh, my strength and my Redeemer. You see, at the end of Psalm 19, we see Yahuwah presenting himself as the strength of Yasharel, the one who makes us upright and the one who redeems us. And so we see the Torah at the beginning of this psalm set up as a plumb line and measure, set up as a light with no shadow of turning, manifest in the law of the sun that gives life to the whole earth. And it is this Torah, who is the Word and Yahwsha, who converts and restores our soul, and who enlightens our eyes. And we end with the New Testament, and actually the end of the world, description of Yahwah in the form of Yahwsha, our strength and our Redeemer. So Psalm 19 literally buttons with the sun both the so-called Old Testament and the Brit Hadashah New Testament together in one. So again, we have the law of heaven, the line, indeed the plumb line of the sun, moon, and stars has gone out, just as Yahwsha is the plumb line and measure, the one who is without shadow. So the zero shadow noon of the sun, when it annually leaves the fourth gate, illuminates Eden and Jerusalem. And this obedience to the law of the sun and the appointed times even locates the land and the temple of Yahuwah. This was the measure of Torah. This is why Satan always called himself the sun god, and people worship the sun. And temples all over the earth are oriented around the sun, the zero shadow perfect measure. Is the sun a law unto itself? If you use the righteous Enochian calendar, we now have the Father of lights, the equal weight measure, entering in at the exact same time every year. The fourth gate aligns with the Nile, and the first day moves through the 7 days of the week, every March 17th, to reset the 7 days of the week to the 7-year land Sabbath. I've talked to you about this many times before, but Yahuwah has given me a final revelation about the location and the trees that witness there, and how they reflect in the conduct of Israel today, who has been taken with whips and chains to be tormented in Babylon. When Ezekiel commanded that the 2 sticks be put together, it was actually 2 trees, 2 olive trees, again akin to the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. And so it is in the very land of Ephraim and Judah where 2 trees dominate, the olive tree and the juniper tree. In Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Tanzania, these are the co-rulers of the forest. Ezekiel 31, 3 through 17 reads, "Behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon with fair branches, with a shadowing shroud, and of a high stature, and his top was among the thick boughs." The juniper tree is a kind of cedar. His weight, therefore, was exalted above the trees of the field, and his boughs were multiplied, and his branches became long because of the multitude of the waters when he shot forth. This is an image of the garden of Yahuwah. In verse 8 it says, "The cedars in the garden of Elohim could not hide from him. The fir trees were not like his boughs, and the chestnut trees were not like his branches. Nor any tree in the garden of Elohim was like unto him in his beauty." And so Yahuwah drove him out for his wickedness. The Assyrian is a type of Satan. Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, in the day when he went down to the grave, I caused mourning. I covered the deep for him, and I restrained the floods thereof. And the great waters were stayed, and I caused Lebanon to mourn for him, and all the trees of the field fainted for him. I made the nations to shake at the sound of his fall when I cast him down to hell. With them that descend into the pit, and all the trees of Eden, the choice and best of Lebanon, all that drink water, shall be comforted in the nether parts of the earth. Oh, this is the cedar tree, the juniper tree that is also in this land. As I've mentioned before, it is Loami National Park in the central Congo, where the sun hits at a perfect zero shadow noon. And when we look for the quote around the meaning of Loami, we can simply look to Hosea 1, verses 9 through 11. And Elohim said, call his name Loami, for you are not my people, and I will not be your Elohim. The context of this is the cutting off of the northern kingdom of Israel, and eventually the whole nation. Call his name Loami, for you are not my people, and I will not be your Elohim. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, you are sons of the living Elohim. For great shall be the day of Jezreel, or Yezreel. So that is the promise that is assigned to the term or name Loami. Loami, or Lo am I. And so when we look at Ethiopia and Tanzania and Uganda and Kenya, we find that in these countries there is a plethora of wild olive trees, not to mention the number of normal trees in northern Africa, which is so-called Western Europe today. But there are approximately 3,120 square miles of olive trees alongside the juniper tree in all of these countries. And so the wild olive tree, Olea chrysophylla, dominates Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Ethiopia in the highlands area. Now, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has fewer olive trees, just 217 square miles of them, because the olive trees are an extremely high altitude growing plant. However, a different tree dominates the DRC. Why is this important? Well, I mentioned that Banyo is the name of a town at zero shadow noon in Loami National Park, and it's near the Jordan in the midst of that forest. Now in Hebrew, Banyo can mean wisdom, discernment, house of the seed of the right hand. The banyan is a fig tree. This is the fig tree, the one who Yahwsha cursed and cut down in Mark 11, and as Yahweh promised, he would do a strange work with, according to Isaiah 28 and 21. And indeed, we find in the midst of Loami National Park, in the town or region of Banyo, a strange work has occurred. Now, banyan is an Arabic term meaning to write a letter of appeal for charity and assistance in moving to the land of Israel. Now, the feminine version of this word, Strong's 995, means to have discernment, insight, understanding, to mark, to know, to have intelligence, to perceive and be wise, as the book of Daniel says. Daniel chapter 12 and 10 says, "Many will be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand. But the wise shall understand." In other words, those who are not looking for the land according to the law of the Son and the slain witnesses of the true Aleph trees will not understand. Those who are not observing Torah and the appointed times according to the word will not understand. In Ezra chapter 8, he seeks out all of the Levites for wisdom in leaving the Medes and Persians and building the second temple. And this is the word used, banyan, again meaning wisdom and understanding. And it is applied to the Levites he seeks out for the building of the second temple. Deuteronomy 32 and 29 uses this word in this context. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. Banyan, their latter end. 2 Samuel 3 and 8. So this is when Samuel is called. Eli perceived banyan, that Yahwah had called the child. When Samuel the prophet is called by Yahuwah, the word perceive is banyan. Also in 1 Chronicles 27:32, Jonathan, David's uncle, was a counselor, and he was called banyan man, a wise man and a scribe. 2 Chronicles 35 and 3 said the Levites had taught. This is a word for teaching, banyan. The Levites had taught, banyan, all Israel. Job 32 and 8 says, "But there was a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty giveth them understanding." So banyan, understanding. And in 2 Chronicles 26 and 5, Uzziah sought Elohim in the days of Zechariah, who had understanding, banyan, in the visions of Elohim. So this word is extremely important to prophecy, redemption, wisdom, understanding, perception, and teaching of the Levites. And we know the scripture says that all of Yasharel shall be taken for Levites, for priests, for banyan, fig trees. It is a place that the wise discern and the Levites teach about, as I'm doing. It can also be used as a preposition, as in between, or also as a conjunction, asunder, between, within. And so in this case, it's used to refer to the ark, where Yahuwah communes with us, where his Ruach rests between the two witnesses of the two cherubim. This word is used when Yahuwah divides light from darkness, morning from evening. So again, we see the law of the sun manifest in this word. In Genesis 1 and 4. It also refers to the times when the evening sacrifice is slain in Exodus 12. So this is between the evenings, between darkness and light. This is the place between heaven and earth, where Ezekiel was taken up by Yahweh to the temple of Jerusalem. Indeed, this may well be hidden Jerusalem, clothed like Adam and Eve in a network of fig leaves to cover shame. The solar noon and Nile mark the location of Jerusalem because Jordan is near Eden and the city of David in Jerusalem. The temple's construction would have required zero shadow noon. And this was considered the ancient center of the world and the spring equinox, as I've already mentioned, where the Most High set apart south and east for himself and chose that Messiah, the perfect shadowless light, would descend here. But before we finalize this, we need this last witness of the place where the fig tree is restored, where the river of life flows, that is the Jordan, and the fig trees are planted by water. The book of Enoch, chapter 56 says, "And I saw there the hosts of angels of punishment going, and they held scourges and chains of iron and bronze. And I asked the angel of peace who went with me, saying, To whom are these who hold the scourges going? And he said unto me, To their elect and beloved ones, that they may be cast into the chasm of the abyss of the valley of dry bones," basically in brackets. "And then that valley shall be filled with their elect and beloved, and the days of their lives shall be at an end, and the days of their leading astray shall not thenceforward be reckoned." Here is a picture of Israel's judgment in Babylon that we shall see is actually reflected in the land itself. By far the most bizarre analogy for captive Israel in the underworld of Babylon is what is called the strangler fig canopy. The banyo tree, a massive portion of Loami's fig tree population, thrives as African river figs overhanging the Loami River and its seasonal pools. They float along water channels to disperse their seeds, just as Yasharel was taken captive on boats along the seas to disperse the seed. But by far the most bizarre analogy for captive Israel in the underworld of Babylon is what is called the strangler fig canopy. The banyo tree, a common phonetic alternative for banyan trees, deep within the DRC's primary rainforest blocks, massive strangling figs act as canopy giants. Monkeys and birds, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air, deposit their tiny seeds high in the canopy by eventually sending woody aerial roots downwards to envelop host trees, claiming dominant top-tier sunlight access. The strangler figs are at their absolute peak in the continuous Congo Basin rainforest zone, dominating about 101.8 million hectares, or 1,018,000 square kilometers of forest. There is not a square kilometer of pristine or secondary lowland Congo rainforest that lacks this fig tree's representation. Monkeys have redistributed the strangler fig tree seeds in an aerial system of highways that they traverse. Their seeds grow down from the canopy into larger banyans. The younger upper fig trees use the grand tree's trunks for soil, eventually parasitically hollowing them out. There are many accounts of hell being structured this way, bodies upon bodies, thus weaving an impenetrable forest of roots that cloak the land and feed wildlife while barring human habitation. A fruitful field that is counted for a forest, all the while being a waste without form. A void wilderness of confusion. This is why Ezra says the hidden city shall be revealed. And we are hopeful because the banyan tree is also the house of the seed. But this is a picture of Yasharel even today. The strangler fig is like those who are taken captive with the whip, crabs in a barrel in the underworld of the West. Yasharel bites and devours one another. A ministry founded on truth that allows lies and lawlessness to dominate its canopy of light for filthy lucre and fame. They make void the Torah of life in a wasteland filled with the confusion of vines. This is Hebraically understood to mean void, like at the time of creation, and as in Isaiah 1 and 8, which says, "The daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, a besieged city." Yasharel is a besieged city, and in this case the land is besieged by the tangled vine of the Christian church doctrine, where PDF file preachers feed off women and children, or the young disrespect their elders. In the camp, Satan's trick of truth mixed with a lie runs rampant in the iniquity of Prester John's Catholic Islamist polygamy-based culture, where Joseph is the daddy. Or the assembly of the Hebrew Israelites who don't think you can know the appointed times to obey Torah, or don't know that your body is the temple to keep the appointed times in, and don't know, aren't sure that polygamy and adultery is sin, and that you cannot go with strange women because you are not only what your father is. And you must confess these things to return to the land. In all this twisting of truth, everyone is fighting to reach the fat middle of mediocrity, mass audiences, half-truths, and lawlessness. This is the forest in the DRC, and it's actually known as the Toltec forest, which is biblically associated with the Assyrian. Robbed of fruit rooted in righteous luminance from the canopy of light, the tangled and ensnared dominate a corporate body that's rooted in the death of the firstborn, elders who eat their young. Here the fruit of mediocrity flourishes mid-level in the forest, in some cases rooted in the stolen nutrients of elders, thriving on temporary scattering by the beasts of the field and fowls of the air. It all sits as a lesson for ministries serving the common people and men of renown who first feared the thundering voice of Yahuwah on the mountain and told Moses, "You go up there for us." And while Yahuwah thundered and wrote the commandments, these same people called on Aaron to make the golden calf. The mediocre men of renown sought to please the people and were cut down with the sword later, or swallowed up by the earth. The same faithless ones drove Aaron and Moses to smite the rock, and they lost access to the kingdom. Saul chose to hear and please the people by not slaying the Philistine captives to keep their livestock for the masses. Thus Saul forfeited his kingdom. These same mobs rewarded Saul's sacrifice and drove David out of the land by chanting, "Saul killed thousands and David 10,000," till he returned many battles and decades later in victory with a mixed multitude who married into his line and tore the kingdom apart. The same preferred his son Absalom over David because Absalom sought fame at the gate, and David was cast out again. The foolishness of fame caused truth to be slain in the streets and Yasharel to be scattered in the four corners by so many silly monkeys and foolish fowls of the air. Levi chose Yahweh and his law over pleasing man, so he will directly serve Yahweh forever. Unlike the strangling vine seeking the masses in the middle, he was not a people pleaser. Pray for Israel to follow the Torah and appointed times. Because Yahweh said Yahshua would forget all his Torah, commandments, and judgments, and go astray regarding the renewals, Shabbatot feasts, jubilees, and ordinances. He said he would send his witnesses against them, but they would not hear. They would slay the witnesses also and persecute those who seek Torah, and abrogate and change everything. So they would work evil before Yahuwah's eyes. Even so, ultimately, only the wise will understand. Unlike the strangling vine seeking the masses, Levites are not people pleasers. So here we finish with Psalm 19 and the law of the Son who goes forth as a bridegroom. The Torah of Yahuwah is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of Yahweh are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yahweh is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of Yahweh are true and righteous. Altogether, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, my Yahweh, my strength, and my Redeemer. And so this is the law of the Son and the two witnesses on earth. And Yahweh said they would not be obedient till they confess their own sins and the sins of their fathers. After this, Yahshua would turn to Yahweh in uprightness with all their heart and soul in worship, loving Yahweh with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. He said we would circumcise the foreskins of our hearts and the heart of the seed and create a new Ruach HaKodesh and cleanse us so we won't stray from him. And our souls will cleave to him and all his commandments. And he will be our Father, and we will be his children. The conclusion of the matter? Fear Yahuwah and keep his commandments, the Torah and appointed times. Our hope in this is that a second kind of fig tree dwells in Loami National Forest. The seeds of these trees simply float along in the slipstream of Torah and waters of life to be strong fig trees planted by the water. This massive portion of Loami's fig tree population thrives as African river figs overhanging the Loami River and its seasonal pools. They float along the water channels to disperse their seeds, just as Yahshua was taken captive on boats along the seas to disperse the seed of the northern kingdom and the seed of the southern kingdom of Judah amongst the seed of man and beast. And here it is that we find the trees of righteousness planted by the water, who will bring forth their fruit in due season. Like the tenth who shall return with the substance of their fruit in them, according to Isaiah. The royal priesthood, Levites of Yasharel, taken for a kingdom of priests. Quam Yasharel. I will post a link to this article in the next day or so, Yah willing, and let me know your thoughts. Be sure to go to intoalltruth.net to pick up the Moedim Appointed Times calendar, as well as Chaya, Eat, Life, and Fast, the Hebraic Lifestyle and Cookbook. It's also a health book to help you with your natural health the Hebraic way, according to the ways taught to Noah.
Arise of you, O Yahweh. Let your enemies be scattered, and let those that hate thee flee from before thee. Give him thanks by saying hallelujah.